Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Blue Please right here on cynicalbrit.com. This myself, Total Biscuit. It's been an interesting day, I have to say. I'll tell you, I have been wearing my fireproof suit the entire day, my fireproof hat as well. Whew, getting a bit hot in here, folks. Good lord. Well, let's talk about Zul'Gurub. And this would probably be the bit where you'd think I'd be at my most ranty, and I'm gonna have to disappoint you. Yes. Okay. So, let's be honest here. Patch 4.1, in terms of a content patch, is really bad. I would like to do a comparison, if I may. We're going to go on a little field trip. We're going to have a look at patches in World of Warcraft with the word .1 after them, the digit .1. Let me tell you what was in patch 2.1. Patch 2.1 was the Black Temple. Yes, the Black Temple, ladies and gentlemen. It came with the Black Temple and Mount Hyjal. It was a double raid patch. Not only that, but it introduced Druid Epic Flying Form, the Ethereum Prison and Sketis, as well as the Netherdrake questline and the Orgrimmar daily questline. And a new arena. Some patch that was. Holy hell. Damn right. You wanna know what the scary thing was? The really terrifying thing about when that patch actually came out? When was the Burning Crusade launched? Can you remember? I'm about to find out, because I'm fairly sure it was sometime earlier in that year. The Burning Crusade was launched on January 16, 2007. You want to know when patch 2.1 came out? 22nd of May, 2007. Whoa! Yes! Indeed! 4 months! 4 months to get 2 entire raid dungeons of a high quality, a bunch of different daily questing hubs, a new epic flight form, several new factions, and a new arena. That's what I call a .1 patch, folks. But what about patch 3.1? Let's go on a field trip. What was patch 3.1 all about, ladies and gentlemen? The Secrets of Ulduar. What did that have? Well, that, ladies and gentlemen, had the entirety of a 14-boss raid dungeon consisting of many wonderful hard modes. Yes, indeed. The introduction of mass hard modes in a single dungeon, something that hadn't really been done before. It had been introduced with Sartharion, but of course that was a full-on. Yes, that was a full-on set. The Argent Tournament, folks. The Argent Tournament started off, the daily questing lines, the various hubs there as well. Oh, yeah. And a significant talent revision. Also, that was when ground mounts were able to swim. Yeah. That, I would call a fairly significant patch. When did that come out? April 14th, 2009. That was 6 months after the release of World of Warcraft Wrath of the Lich King. 4.1! Ladies and gentlemen. Flying mounts can now be used in the Ghostlands. Zul'Aman and Zul'Gurub have been rehashed into 5-mans. And there are now profession trainers in all capitals. And aside from some minor balance changes, that's pretty much about it. Well, you weren't kidding when you wanted to get away from those monolithic bloody patches, were you? Because this is damn insignificant. And we're looking at a 6-month gap. 5 to 6 months, give or take, between the launch of the game and that first patch. So, in terms of .1 patches, I have to say that this is probably the lamest. I wonder what happened in 1.1, actually. Let's go all the way back to that. What? Oh yeah, 1.1 was when they actually brought racials into the game. Holy hell! Yeah, that was on 7th of November 2004, folks. Yeah, that was kind of big deal. That was actually when Onyxia came into the game. And the Molten Core. And Kodos. and a ton of other stuff. So yes, actually 4.1 is the lamest 0.1 patch in the world. Oh my god. 2 rehashed raid dungeons into 5-mans. That's what we're expected to swallow as the big follow-up patch content. Please. Not impressed at all. Indeed, why would I be? Entirely disturbing. Is it not? Not a fan. Not happy with that at all. So, let's talk a little bit about Zul'Gurub. I will talk about Zul'Gurub specifically because I know quite a bit about it. I have done it. I am aware of the nature of the content. What I am not aware of is why the hell they chose to put it back in the game. Let's talk about it. Zul'Gurub is a remodeled 5-man. It consists of not all of the bosses. 2 of the bosses are missing. I should point that out. The Bat boss and the Spider boss. They're gone. Those areas are blocked off. You can't get into them. So what it's got is it's got the Snake. It's got a replacement for the Tiger, which is not really a boss. It's just a mini-boss. It's got the Panther. It's got a replacement for Jindo. And it then has Jindo himself, who is actually a replacement for Hakar. So, it's also got Bloodlord Mandakir, so that's what, 5 encounters, if I remember correctly. Snake, Panther, Mandakir, Zazil? Zanzil? Whatever. Yeah, Zanzil. And Jindo the Godbreaker. And then a few mini-bosses that really ain't anything. I mean, the Tiki Lord, pfft. That big demon guy's got like 1 million HP. Nobody cares. He's just a big mob. So, it's quite a bit smaller. What has changed? Well, the nature of most of the bosses has been altered quite significantly. I mean, the boss that I was most impressed with from what I saw... Bear in mind, I haven't seen Jindo the Godbreaker yet. That could be kind of cool. Once I do that, of course, you'll get video coverage of it. What I would say is that the way that the Snake boss is designed is probably the most impressive. It is a very cool 5-man encounter. It really is. It's quite hard. It is quite hard. It'll probably get nerfed. It was actually one of the comments of our Heroic Raiders that were in there with us, and bear in mind they're like 4 out of 12 on Heroic Raid content, so they're not exactly pushovers. That puts us, I think... What would that put us in, actually? I'd be interested to know. I have to check our realm. Yeah, if we've done 4 raid encounters, yeah, we'd pretty much be within sort of the top 800 in the world, I believe. Fairly impressive, really, when you think about it. So, those guys aren't any pushovers. They know exactly what they're doing. And one of them turned around and said that he thought the internal cooldown on the abilities of that particular boss was not amazing. It was not good enough. Yeah, we're actually ranked 4th on the realm. All ranked at the same, I might add, as everybody else other than Intuition. So we're kind of like joint 2nd. So yeah, those guys know what they're doing. So it is so hard to the point that a Heroic Raider is saying that it might need a little bit of a nerf. That's kind of cool. But the mechanics within it are very, very cool. The maze mechanic is awesome. One might even say amazing. Yes, thank you. Now. The maze mechanic is great. Really, really good. That's actually such an elegant solution to the random element of any fight that tries to zone you into different areas. Really. We're talking about stuff like, you remember, not Jaraxxus, no, you faced Jaraxxus. It was actually Malchezaar. Yeah, Malchezaar, whatever. Prince Malchezaar, yes. He had this tendency to annoy people. And the reason was that it would block them into areas because of the random nature of the encounter. Things could get really hard. Now, the way that they have now eliminated that is to make sure that the zoning within the Venoxus encounter, by zoning, I mean the idea of restricting movement based on things that will otherwise hurt you. It's actually a term from fighting games. Zoning is keeping people in a certain area of the screen that you want to by using different kinds of moves that will do so. Yeah? So, that's a fairly big deal. Now, that encounter works really well, and it's cool. As regards to the Panther, I'm not so impressed by the Panther. As far as I can tell, you can actually kill the Panthers before you go in there, so really the Panther doesn't have an awful lot other than the whole summoning of the Tigers thing. You know, kill the Panthers at the side, and everything is good and wonderful, and everybody's happy. So, not so concerned about that. The Panther was not an impressive boss. Zanzil is good, but he's way too basic. We beat him with 4 people on the first attempt, and we had no idea what was going on. So, that should concern you a little bit. That, for a second off last boss, bearing in mind that Jindo the Hexer was easily the penultimate boss in Zul'Gurub in terms of difficulty, it should concern you that his replacement is easily beaten, like, in one shot. Whereas we had to try a lot on Venoxus. We had to try quite a lot on Mandakir as well. Still unsure as to the Mandakir mechanics. I have to wonder if that whole watching you mechanic is still there, but there's no actual alert this time. Because the whole charging thing of him going and killing you and leveling up and stuff kind of sucks. But bear in mind that we got him down to 60k. Yep, 60k HP. That's 1% of his health with 4 people. So with 5, we could very easily destroy the guy. And it wouldn't even matter. So if there is a mechanic that he's supposed to involve, it can be easily brutalized. Whether or not it could be overgeared by people in 3, 4, 6 gear, which is what you require to get in there, that remains questionable, but I'd say probably it can. With 5 people, yeah, I reckon you could do it very easily. So that fight is not going to be difficult with 5 people with the gear that you are required. Bear in mind, you need 3, 4, 6 to even get in there. So it's going to be 3, 4, 6 upwards. I think you could very easily do that in 3, 4, 6 gear without a question. You only gain a minor amount of extra damage from upgrading to 359 in the grand scheme of things. If you look at a percentage, you know, it's probably around 10%, maybe even less than that. Whatever the case, it doesn't matter. You can still very easily kill him. Healing doesn't matter in that fight because you get one shot by the charge mechanic, so it's not like that's going to make a difference. I wouldn't expect people to absolutely and totally destroy that. It's just not going to happen. As regards to the Godbreaker, I don't know anything about the Godbreaker, like I said before. And that kind of covers it, really, doesn't it? Yeah, I think it does. Aside from the mini-bosses, well, there's nothing really changed other than that, and those summonable bosses in the Madness room, they're still there, but that was an absolute pushover as well, so I don't expect anything particularly difficult there. However, just how acceptable was it to rehash? I'm not going to talk about Zul'Aman right now because I don't know much about it, but rehashing Zul'Gurub to me seems like it's a reuse of assets and not a reuse of mechanics, mostly. There are some reused mechanics, but there's reused mechanics everywhere, so you can't really criticize them for that. I think the main problem is that I don't get a feeling of nostalgia from going back in there. I get a feeling of boredom. Oh, great, I'm back in Zul'Gurub again! And a lot of it's quite similar. That doesn't really impress me, honestly. I would prefer a new dungeon with new stuff in it. It's like saying, I'll ask you this question. Would you have preferred the Forge of Souls? Or would you have preferred them to, say, remake Scholomance? Some of you might answer Scholomance, but I would say I'd prefer the way the Forge of Souls was set up, because the Forge of Souls was a new experience. It had new mobs in it, it had new bosses in it, it had new music in it, the ambience of the Forge of Souls was really cool, it had new visuals. That, to me, was much, much better than reusing an old dungeon, even though some people might get a nostalgia trip from it. I personally don't have any interest in another nostalgia trip. I think nostalgia is now highly overrated, and it comes down to the fact that I want new experiences. I do not want new experiences in an old shell. And I'm not going to totally criticize them for it, because yes, they have remodeled Zul'Gurub bosses in such a way that the dungeon is interesting, but I think it's much less interesting than it would have been if it were simply a brand new dungeon. And my concern is, where the hell's the Abyssal Moor? Why have we heard nothing about that? That was supposed to be coming in patch 4.1. Are we not going to get that now? Is that going to be it? Are we going to get rehashed content for 4.1? Is that going to be their grand slam? As new MMOs start to come out, as we see Rift launch, their grand slam is to bring onto the PTR 2 rehashed dungeons, and then announce that their raid content isn't coming till later. Are you just... I don't know, I feel that Blizzard is doing what I used to do in Populous, whereby I would beat the red team down to almost annihilation, and then I would switch, and then I would consist to rebuild my empire, and then beat down the blue team. That's what I'm feeling like right now. They are deliberately putting nails in their own coffin, so it'll be more challenging for them to get out for it later. Masochists! That's the only explanation I've got, folks. I don't know. I just don't know. It's confusing. Decent mechanics, reasonable bosses. Rehash? Why? Save time? Why would you need to save time, Blizzard? Really, how much are we paying you? My name is Total Biscuit, you're listening to Blue Please, right here on CynicalBrit.com. I'll be back after here with the illusion of choice. This one's called Lost to Apathy. It seems fairly appropriate. Enjoy.